Perfect. Okay, well, hi everybody. Welcome to our 15th episode of our Let's Talk Ghost Gear webinar series. Today's session is focused on the topic of transforming ALDFG into art and handicrafts. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Katie Frankel. I am the membership specialist at the Triple GI, and I will be moderating today's webinar. We also have Cyan Simmons, who will be helping me out today. Thank you so much, Cyan. She will be moderating the chat. So while I'm running the slides, I won't be able to see anything coming up on the chat. So Cyan will be able to address those as needed. So thank you again for everyone for taking the time out of your busy day or evening or middle of the night to be here. As mentioned on previous episodes, there are two key purposes to these webinars. First, we want to give our members a chance to showcase their work to other members and to a larger audience through our YouTube channel. And so this session and future sessions will be recorded for that purpose. And second, we want to give everyone a chance to connect with each other and spark conversations and future collaborations around ghost gear. So we have 4 speakers with us today, each of whom will have about 5 to 7 minutes to present on their work. And then we'll have an open panel discussion where we will encourage anyone in the audience to go ahead and ask questions. We'll take questions from those who raise their hands using the raise hand function at the bottom of the Zoom window under the reactions tab. But again, we'll also be monitoring the chat for questions. And if you're able to, we'd love to hear your voices and see your faces. So our panelists today will be Beatriz Mattiuzzo, the founder of Marulho, based in Brazil. Ayamba Achare Elvic, founder of the Environment and Food Foundation in Cameroon. Lynette Griffiths, an artist in the GhostNet Collective based in Australia. We also have Dr. Mickey Steward, who is the Vice President and Board of Directors of Fundacion Hagamos based in Mexico. And then our 5th speaker, unfortunately, was not able to join us today. Her name is Gladys Doohah. She is the Arts Center Manager of Erub Arts, also based in Australia, but she did send me a video that I can share. So I will share Gladys's video in lieu of a presentation after Mickey's presentation. So we have our webinar officially scheduled for 90 minutes today, and our panelists have about 5 to 7 minutes to leave time for questions and discussion. And I will let you know when the time is up and we need to move on to the next speaker. So that should be everything from me for now. Also, as a reminder too, while our presenters are talking, please be sure to keep yourself on mute. If I do hear noise coming from your little Zoom box, I might have to mute you myself otherwise. So please be sure to keep yourself on mute while our presenters are going. So that is all from me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we will have Beatriz go as our first presenter. Okay, share screen. Okay, excellent. Okay, Beatriz, we are ready for you to go.
Thank you so much. So excited to be here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I guess we have people from all over. That's so nice. Really excited not only to be part and be presenting today, but also to hear about all those other projects, quite a few of them that I've been following and inspiring, have inspired me for such a long time. But I'm gonna talk a little bit about Marulho, which is a hard name to pronounce. It's actually the typical Brazilian word that we use for the sound that the ocean makes, the waves at the beach. It's called Marulho, and it comes with all this idea of raising awareness and making some noise about ocean-related issues. And all that started in 2019. If you can go to the next slide, please, Katie. Back then, I was working in this paradisiac island in southern Brazil that's called Ilha Grande. But I found the very first ghost net that I ever found. I was working there as a scuba dive instructor, and it just washed up a really small net, just like 5 meters long, but it already had a little shark, a ray, and five other fish species that were killed on this little piece of net. And not only am I a scuba dive instructor, I'm also an oceanographer. And I've had heard about this problem before. And back at university, next slide, please. I had even heard that the ghost fishing problem was to blame for the fishermen, but it was really when I started working within this local traditional community as a scuba dive instructor that I came to understand the problem a little bit better. That we would have these local fishing villages dealing with a problem that would quite often come from big industrial boats. In this island where I live, we used to have lots of artisanal fishing, but it switched in the end of the 80s and 90s to a more industrial fishing. And nowadays, they have big industrial boats coming in, leaving their nets for the locals to repair. And then the big boats will only grab the good part of the nets and leave behind all these dirty, smelly, and heavy residue on an island where everything has to come and go by boat. Um, so it became clear to me that it was really not fair to say that the fishermen were to blame, especially not the local artisanal fishermen that were actually suffering with the problem and were very much on the front line of the problem. So what to do with that? That's what we started thinking. Next one, please. So just so you have an idea where I am, you can go to the next one. I'm in southern Brazil, in this island, and we work with two small communities that are Matariz and Provetá. They're like really small communities. The island in total has about 5,000 people, but Matariz and Provetá both have under 1,000 people on each village, and they're only accessible by boat. So really traditional, really small scale fishermen and fishing families. Uh, and we started working with those two communities that were the most traditionally related to fishing because that's where the nets would end up going to. And what we started doing was taking those nets. Next one, Katie, please. So that was the very first fisherman that started taking the nets with us and accepted taking those nets and transforming them into new products. So I already had like a mesh bag made out of cotton back then, and I wanted to grab the nets that were to be discarded and turn them into something else, something new. And seu filhinho, which was back then 83 years old, was the first fisherman that was like, okay, let's try to do that, because quite a few of them just thought that I was kind of crazy for trying to do something like that. And what started back in 2019 with only Seu Filhinho became a social business model. Next one. So nowadays we take the nets that are to be discarded, brought from land, but also do underwater cleanups at least twice a year. And then next we select all of them, do a fully thorough cleanup of them because we know it's a very dirty material and we don't want anyone getting sick. And then we give them back to the local fishermen. So next. And the local fishermen, using the traditional mending techniques, can next turn them into products that, since we are in those very isolated communities, we have established a model to sell them online. Next. And nowadays we have, from the very first product, there was this mesh bag for fruits and vegetables to be used at the supermarket, we have more than 20 different products, and not only with the traditional knowledge of mending nets that we still use, but also we incorporated many more other knowledges in other people from the community. Next. Um, so yeah, so that helped us like reskill those former fishermen, and we also were able to start including more women in this very male-dominated environment that fishing is up to today, in at least in this area that I'm working on. And now we have several women from Dona de Meia or Ana, which are older women, but also quite a few younger people that see in the mending nets tradition a way of doing something different and getting some financial aid as well. Next, please. With that, we have already been able to intercept more than 27 tons of discarded fishing nets, generated more than 200,000, what would be equivalent to 200,000 USD for the locals only. And according to the best data that we have, as you very well know, it's really always hard to quantify the impact of those nets that in the environment, but that would mean up to a million animals if those nets had ended up in the ocean. Next, please. And what I find quite nice of that is that we were very much, even though the idea started in 2019, the pandemic gave us a lot of reason to give this a try, because it was a moment that the community was very vulnerable, and we decided to try to make this a social business model that became in 2021, 2022 my master thesis, which was how the project financed itself in the first years. And then from 2023 onward, we started selling more products and being more sustainable. 2024, we managed to not only reuse the nets, but we also can recycle them now, like using machines. And we started last year a replication process. And besides Mattiuzzo and Provetà, which are the two communities that we started on, we are also doing this whole process with communities from outside the island that we live on. Next. Yeah, so as I'm sure you well know, it's a very huge problem. So that's why we would reuse all the nets that we could, but we couldn't figure out a way to really solve the problem. And then we came up with a way to recycle those nets. Next. Using precious plastic machines, which are an open source machines that we have adapted, and we can now turn those nets into keychains or even sunglasses, or well, lots of stuff, all made from the fishing nets. And that also helps us recycle many other plastics around here. Next. And since last year, we started working with 4 other new communities. 2 of them are also on the same island that had reached out to us, but also 2 others are on the mainland. It's been very challenging, but very fulfilling as well. And that's all because we were recognized by one of the biggest institutions in Brazil as a social technology that can be replicated and help solve this problem in other places. Yeah, and with those new communities, we did a whole process for them to not only use their nets, but also incorporate other techniques and artisanal practice that they already had, like hand sewing or making lamps and stuff like that. And that has been pretty much our work since then. Next. And yeah, I always like to end up talking about not only like a blue growth, but also blue justice, and looking for those communities that are at the front lines of ocean conservation. And we work in a way that I believe that we are able to connect all those little dots and really promote some inclusion for those communities and get their knowledge recognized as it should. And that's it. Can follow us on social media, and thank you so much for all our supporters. Oh, I forgot to mention that we actually got a small grant from GGI, and that's how we managed to do all those replicating process as well in other communities, and it's been really nice.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Beatrice, for sharing that with us today. We will save all of our curious questions for the end, and we are going to move on to our next speaker here, Ayamba Achare from Environment and Food Foundation, Cameroon.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I hope you can get me well. Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you very much, Kathy. Thank you, uh, everyone, especially from the Triple GI team and Ocean Conservancy. Yeah, so I'll be talking briefly on our project on ghost gears on reducing abandoned lost and discarded fishing gears along the coastline of Cameroon. Okay, so my name is Ayamba and I'm from Cameroon and I'm the founder of Environment and Food Foundation. Environment and Food Foundation is a community-based grassroots non-governmental organization, and we are working on a mission to halt and prevent or reverse the degradation of our marine and freshwater ecosystems. And we do this through policy advocacy, activism, education, ocean education, environmental education, climate education, and also research. And we also engage in some conservation and restoration actions. Next slide, please. Yeah, our mission is to contribute to the socio-economic development of our vision, to contribute to the socio-economic development of local communities and to build a community where people can contribute to their own development. And our key focus is on how to renew environmental mindfulness, that is to build a sustainable community where people have the right mindset to flourish with nature. Yeah. Next slide. So we do have a lot of programs that are running at the Environment and Food Foundation. Among these programs, we have a program on fighting illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing along the Cameroon coastline, which has been a major issue in recent years. Also, we are working on a project on plastic waste, especially plastic bottles collection and valorization along the coastline of Cameroon. And we have a project on mangroves, how mangroves can contribute to climate change adaptation and to build a resilient coastal communities in Cameroon. We have a program on empowering young kids or children to become environmental warriors, ocean warriors. And the one on abandoned lost or otherwise discarded fishing gears, I think that is the one we are most focused on today. Next slide. So on this particular project, Environment and Food Foundation is working with coastal communities to provide a holistic approach to sustainable management of abandoned lost or otherwise discarded fishing gears by increasing the knowledge gap among all relevant stakeholders and most importantly, the fishermen. And we try to engage in data collection, raising awareness on the impact of ghost gears on marine life and on environment, engage on educational campaigns, prevention and mitigation activities. I start by thanking the Triple GI for their support that has helped us to implement most part of this project. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so as our key goals and some objective, we have so far now 3 principal goals. And the first one is on change of mindset, change of attitude. Like you heard earlier, we have as vision to renew environmental mindfulness, to create, people have the right mindset to flourish with the in natural environment. So we are trying to create change attitude of people and their mindset about the threat of abandoned, lost, or otherwise discarded fishing gears. That is one of our key goals. And to attain this, some of the objectives that we engage in, we work with local communities, especially the fishermen, the students along the coastal communities, and also working with some people that are willing to engage in mitigating the threat of ghost gears. And secondly, we develop a modern curriculum on sustainable management of marine ecosystems with some of our international partners and supporters. And we focus on some key aspects like the part on ghost gears, that's abandoned, lost, or discarded fishing gears, and their impact on the marine life, marine resources. And also another objective is to host training workshops in schools and also in coastal communities. Yeah, so we try to create the awareness, we try to build the capacity of the students and coastal community members on the real impact of this abandoned nets, because most of the time when you ask them, they are ignorant on what this net can do in the water. So most of the fishermen will always say when they finish fishing offshore, they abandon the nets in the sea. They just throw them because they consider it as waste, as they don't have any use with it anymore. And most of the times, some of the nets hang on stones on the floor of the ocean, on the sea, so they just allow it there in the ocean. So we try to educate them on how impactful this could be on our marine ecosystem, and also empowering fishermen and local communities to build green skills capacities, like training them on proper waste storing, sorting, and management. This is where we do some of the craft initiatives where they can convert this into something that can even generate some revenue for them. And we mostly engage women in this as a source of income for them. Next slide, please. So our second goal is on data collection. Like you heard earlier, one of our critical focus is on research. So we try to gather information, and I must comment that here that in Cameroon, there is a limited data on ghost gears, their impact on the environment. So we engage in collecting some data collection on the main types of abandoned nets that are found in the Cameroon coastline and raising awareness on the results. So we have developed a we have developed questionnaires that we minister to fishermen to extract information gaps, to get more information on this problem. And also, we try to analyze these questionnaires to get some critical information on it. And the third objective from the results, from the information gotten from these questionnaires, from the result, we use it to increase advocacy, like telling policymakers, both locally and internationally. Yeah, even more internationally, because we have had some privileges to engage in high-level UN events and other high-level events internationally, like the ongoing negotiation on the binding instrument for plastic waste. So we have we engage in some of these dialogues, and some of these recommendations that we bring from the grassroots level is really vital and also very important to shape the global plastic treaty. The next one, please. And the third goal is on establishing fishing gear collection points in coastal communities to facilitate proper management of this abandoned net. So we try to set up, like, one of the objectives is to set up collection points in these coastal communities where fishermen, when they come with their nets that they normally throw on the sea, we encourage them to bring them and store them in these collection points. And also we establish collection hubs for further processing and separation of collected fishing gears. Next slide, please. So here we see more on some pictures of some of our engagement, ministering questionnaires on the field with some fishermen along the coastline of Cameroon. Next slide, please. Here we engage in environmental education with fishermen, with women, and with kids. And sometimes we see it that it's more, they understand it better and they engage more when we meet them and in their own communities. So we can also just gather them along the coastline where we just sit beside the ocean. Like if you look at most of those pictures, you will see the ocean behind us where we just gather them. Sometimes we just sit even on the floor and we have some deep discussions, seeing some realities on the field, trying to bring it to their concern, how they can engage for the solution. Next, please. Next slide, please. So here we engage mostly women and children on developing some crafts like we have developed like bangles, one of our cultures and tradition here, we love putting on bangles on our hands. So these bangles is like, it has some cultural significance. So we use it to make bangles where like a fisherman can say, I want to use my own net to make my own bangle and put it on my hand. That will like motivate me and encourage me more to engage in my activities. So yeah, so here is like just one of our traditional collection point that we built in local communities using local available materials which are eco-friendly. Next slide, please. Yeah, so you can see us doing some collection. Like, yeah, this one is like the pictures up are mostly plastic bottles along the coastline, but you can also see us down collecting for coast nets, some collection along the coastline. Next slide.
Ayamba, I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have to cut you off here if that's okay. You
Yeah,
are a little
so,
over time.
okay, no problem. I'm done already. That's the end. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then we've also, Ayamba also thoughtfully shared some ways that you can connect with him and E2F Cameroon as well. So I'll just pause on that for a second. And then if anyone has questions about how to connect with any of our presenters, please just let me know and I can put you in touch. But thank you so much, Ayamba. I'm sure we'll have lots of questions. In the question period. But for now, we are going to move on to our next speaker, which is Lynette Griffiths from the GhostNet Collective.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry, I've got a bit of a cough, so if I cough halfway through, I'm really sorry. It's lovely to meet everybody, and thank you to Triple GI for inviting me to speak. So I'm going to talk about what we do as a very small collective and a little bit of the history, I guess, of how GhostNet as an art movement came about in the Northern Australia, and how we work by engaging and creating and sharing. Next slide, please. So our model works very much on collaboration, and in 2009, so way back, the Arts Queensland, which is a government organisation, funded a group of artists to go into communities, Indigenous communities in the far north, and work alongside people, sharing skills both ways, and working on projects or small items that could be sold that returned money back to community. I was one of those artists, and so was Marion. So that's myself standing up in that picture, and Marion Gamer's on the right of that picture. In that picture, we're working with ladies from Groote Island, which is in the Gulf of Carpentaria, on a large project. So in 2009, we started, and I worked mainly with Erub Arts, which I was a co-founder of. And then during COVID, I realised that we needed to broaden the spectrum. We needed to broaden out. It was, everything was gaining a lot of, I guess, a lot of interest at that time, and a lot of people wanted to be involved. So to broaden that out, we had to sort of separate ourselves out, I guess, from being exclusively people who worked with Indigenous communities to be able to work in other ways. So GhostNet Collective was formed, and at the top of that, you can see there's the GhostNet Collective. So now we partner with other organisations or individuals to research and resource collection. We engage other people like Tangaroa Blue and other beach cleaning people, and they sort of deliver net en masse, where there is a little bit of a problem for us as artists, because we need a variety of colour and a variety of net, and often big beach clean organisations just, will deposit, sort of a ton of blue net. So, in our part of the world and as artists, we need that sort of variety. We work then with people from the community as lead artists. So there's ourselves, Marion and myself, and we work with a lead artist in that community to develop projects. So we don't come with a top down, it's developing it from that ground up. Quite often we'll engage other people, so creative contributions from other people, and we also work towards curating a larger exhibition. In the beginning, we started with small handcrafts and returning small amounts of money to people, but I soon realised that to be able to get the message out in a large way, we needed to create exhibitions, we needed to create things that people could engage with and on a larger scale. And that's why larger exhibitions, we sort of started chasing larger exhibitions for exposure as well, so we could share that message. We create, make and educate, and then go to exhibition, which is the sharing. So can I have the next slide, please? So collaborating can mean either just myself or Marion, and we're working there on the left on a large scale sort of project. That's a 6 metre high piece that will hang from the ceiling. Or on the right hand side there, you can see many hands. So many hands are making modules that are put together as like rocks, or in that instance, it's rocks and coral. So there are different ways of collaborating, small things, large things, coming together to make forms. I'm very invested in making small modules and the power of the module coming together. Can I have next slide? So the engagement, we engage in different ways. So this is on the left there is the Groote Island community, Aliandakwa Arts, so a ladies group. And here we worked with the rangers, who's on the person on the very left of the sea rangers, who do collect the net. And then we went in and cut what we needed. On the right-hand side, engagement can also happen through instruction sheets, kits, and workshops. So a very different way, and a sort of more isolated way that we started working on during COVID. Next slide. So engagement also happens through looking at the science. So the top left is at the Australian Institute of Marine Science. They commissioned us to make a large piece to work with Erub Arts on that. So we went into their labs, looked at how coral was dealing with climate change. It was all how coral was also dealing with microplastics. All of those things kind of informed what we wanted to do. Then the bottom left there, we're working with their scientists, so their main scientists in all of those areas, to come up with a project. We came up with a big thing, like it's a spiral of life, and it had different corals and things on it in juvenile form and an adult form. So there we're pushing that out to schools, so working with school children. And at the bottom, there's a teacher. So we also work with teachers, and their teacher then takes that back to the classroom, and that's all children's work there. That all went on to a big piece that you'll see at the end. Can I have the next slide, please? So creating can happen in a number of ways. On the right-hand side, you'll see the ladies from Ayamba Arts at Good Island starting to create. That's the start of the creative process of a large-scale piece that you saw in the very beginning. So I lead, quite often a different number of ways of looking at things. So this is like using watercolor and pencil to actually draw, and then we cut up, and then we paste onto drawings, and we look at color. We collect items from the beach. So it's talking. There's a lot of discussion and talking, and people get up and draw. So it is very collaborative, and there's not just one person driving it. On the left, you see a whole pile of tiny little rays sewn into a much larger piece. So those rays were kits that were sent out with instructions and a small movie, and they come back. You can see they're all different shapes and sizes, but when those modules are together, that doesn't really matter. It's about bringing people together. And on this particular one, it was about people celebrating together and coming together. Okay, next slide. And that's one of the results of the giant rays. So you can see they're they're about 3 meters across. It's not just Indigenous and non-Indigenous people working together. There are also groups of volunteers. So we bring in groups of volunteers who come and stitch. And on this project, we made 11 of these rays, 3 meters wide. They hang in Exchange Square in Sydney, a big outdoor exhibition. Next slide. So sharing. So from there, you can see that ray. You can see some hanging in the background behind us. They're all illuminated. This was about 3 years of work. It was a massive project by Lend-Lease. There are 5 big installations in Sydney. So this is in Sydney, Australia. You can see them behind us. So that's myself, Marion, and with the lead artist from Erub, Jimmy John Thaiday. So yeah, we worked really hard on that. Yep, next slide. So again, sharing. Yeah, next slide. Yep. So sharing internationally, Majorca, but back. Can we just go? Yeah, that one. So this museum is a private museum. That's Ben Yankin. He's the owner of the private museum, but B, an artist, and he commissioned this piece, which is 6 meters long, about the reef. So this was just a collaboration between Marion and myself. Next slide. Working also in museums. So this is the Queensland Museum of Tropics in Townsville. And Marion and I worked on a large project that was talking about the reef But also we had a big education arm where students came in and they created a big coral rock or coral bommy as well. Next slide. Smaller regional galleries we work with, and this brings in community. So on the left, you can see again those small rays. They were done in face-to-face workshops by communities, art groups, zero waste groups. So, you know, all sorts of people who are interested in craft, I guess, and stitching. And so they could make a module, put together, it makes a large statement. On the right, then, are large arrays that made by Marion and myself. So we're combining all of those. In these exhibitions, we make sure that everybody is acknowledged in this. So it's Marion and myself with collaborating groups from, you know, different groups. So everybody has authorship, everybody has names, and what it does when you involve community is brings everybody together at exhibition openings and press and all sorts of things. So you have children, parents, grandparents, you know, you're bringing everybody together to talk about it. Next slide.
Lynette, I'm so sorry to have to cut you off here, but we are a little over time. Do you want me just to kind of flick through the rest of your photos and then we'll move on to the final presentation? Okay.
That's the big spiral. Yep. Next slide. That's at Strand Ephemera outdoor sculpture. Next slide. Bondi Beach, sculpture by the sea, invasive spikes. Next slide. Townsville, reimagining those spikes. We won that competition. Next slide. And taking it into WOW, which is the World of Wearable Art in New Zealand. And we won International Designer Australia in the Pacific for that. Next slide. So summing up, we're education for tomorrow. Education's a big thing, I guess, linking groups and communities so as they can make money and preserving the stitching and weaving tradition, which is common in all cultures. So, yeah, that's what we do. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lynette. Sorry to cut you off there. We have some really amazing photos, honestly, in this slide deck. So during our question period, if anyone wants to go back and check to see any of the other photos, we can always do that. Thank you so much, Lynette. And I'm going to move on to our final speaker of the day, Dr. Mickey Steward from Hagamos Mas.
Hello, everyone. I'm actually just the translator. I have to give full credit to the director of our little foundation, Alma, Colorado. And she prepared this and has been the driver in all of our work. My job today is to try and stay within the time limit. It's so impressive what everyone's done. I can't hardly hope to match what I've heard today, but we'll give it a try. Several years ago, we started with a grant to train women from our fishing communities. Katie, could you leave it on the first slide for me, please?
Mickey, I'm so sorry. I think it's doing it itself. I just copied over your slide, so I don't know if there's like a transition. So if it moves, I'm not touching anything. I think it's like trying to move all by itself, and I don't know why.
Oh, I didn't put a timing on it, so I'm not
Weird.
sure why.
Okay, I'll keep fighting it.
All
Yeah.
right, you keep fighting it, and I'll try and read faster.
Okay.
So we started with a clever idea that Alma came up with, and that was to train women in our fishing communities to communicate about the abandoned, lost, and discarded fishing gear, and then to encourage fishermen to bring in nets, which we would weigh and pay them a small amount for the nets. So everyone got to participate, and there was a payment at the end. And then in our next phase, we added a communication and education program. We expanded outside our own area, and then we started work on what to do with all those nets. So thank you. Now we can really go to the next slide. So we're a very small foundation in the center of Baja California Sur in Mexico. We're called Hagamos Mas por Santa Rosalia, and that's a picture of our little town with the focus on the marina that is next to it. Next, please. So we're located in the north of the state of Baja California Sur. We're a small nonprofit. We have a lot of enthusiasm and do a lot of work, but we really recognize that any goals that we achieve are thanks to the work, support, and trust that the communities where we participate give us. For many years, we've also been working with a U.S. organization called Ecologists Without Borders, and that helps us to bring the science aspect into our operations. It was in 2021 when we found the call for the Joanna Toole grant and applied for initial project. And we've been so lucky to work with Triple GI since then. And we're even more enthused than we started out, even as we've learned a lot of the difficulties inherent in this project. Next slide, please. So our vision is a good sea environment to assist the fishermen to work with pride and sustainability, to reduce pollution, and be economically viable in the long term. Those are similar to the other visions we heard today. Next slide, please. So our timeline, we started in 2022. As I said, we worked with that's very annoying. Worked with women as communicators and contact with fishermen. It was all a learning process for everyone. We certainly didn't know what a terrible impact that abandoned fishing gear had. And then we moved to emphasize the education for children. And then we started pilot testing for recycling the nets. And with some projects that didn't work out too well. And now today we're trying to push our net reduction method and combine it with others to better manage plastic waste. So that's kind of where we are today. Next slide now. So here's a picture of the initial effort. We had people, first we trained people, and then we had them bring in the nets, and you can see on the upper right-hand corner, we're weighing those nets, brought in a lot of nets, did a lot of communication, and had quite a bit of success. We were using 4 small communities in our area, and I think the idea that helped us a lot is with some of the grant money, we actually paid by kilo for the nets. In the following year, next slide, please. In the following year, we added in education for children. We had worked with a program that we had developed earlier called Educate for Life. So this program, teaching them about abandoned fishing nets and the impact that had was a natural follow-on to our original program. And you see us continuing to collect and weigh. You don't actually see the pesos changing hands, but the pay part of it was very successful for us. So next slide now. So here's a little bit more on the educating not only the school children, but the teachers and the principals as well. And we were able to teach 1,487 students, and they came back to us with some really cute pictures of the impact of the nets and ways to talk about that. And at the same time, they began to help us with the recovery of the nets, as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner. Next slide, please. So then we went to testing potential uses for our nets, and I was fascinated to see in Brazil that the nets were not made of monofilament or nylon, which was just an assumption for us that that's how all nets were made. We found right away that our nets were monofilament, and so a lot of the recycling for nylon didn't work for us. So we did some weaving to try and make little entry rugs to wipe sand off your feet, and make some blocks with them. We tried to make insulation for the roofs and for the ceilings of the dwellings in our area, which was a nice concept, didn't work well. And we did other kinds of weaving. And also on the left-hand side, you can see we smushed up the nets as hard as we could to help reduce the area in which they were stored. So these types of things were our initial efforts. And along with the efforts of what to do with the nets, we had also gotten a little bit of funding, next slide please, on ways to dispose of the nets. And our original idea is, well, we would just take them to the landfill and incinerate them. But that proved to be, as everyone should know by now, a very terrible idea. We tried for not only the fumes, but the waste heat, and nothing really too good about that. And then we tried making the packaging to reduce the storage space. And you can see in that bottom middle slide that was successful, but the packages were very unwieldy. So none of our early efforts were very successful. But then, next slide, we had a brainwave. And Alma, in her kitchen, using a little kitchen science, we took waste cooking oil, and we were actually able to melt the monofilament line in the hot cooking oil. So we weren't trying to melt it directly, but we used the cooking oil as a medium to help melt the monofilament line. And as you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, we came up with these little blobs of plastic that were far easier to manage and store than the voluminous monofilament nets. Next slide. So that was our brainwave. Then we enrolled interested students in the local technological institute in industrial engineering to help learn more about the attributes of our material. So they did weighing test and cutting test and a number of things. In the right-hand most slide picture, you can see what one of the blocks, because the molten plastic was poured into a block to make these small blocks. So that's kind of in process right now, and we're actually looking for companies that might be interested in further managing of this plastic material. Next slide. Please. And in fact, we have just recently located Adrian Lucatero in a town not far from us, who is making these plastic blocks as paving stones. And so we've just started speaking with him about downstream utilization of our own plastic blocks within his process. So this isn't art except in the sense of industrial arts, but what we're hoping is that we can use massive quantities of these materials in order to help people both store and reduce the volume of their own net collections, because it's a very simple process we use. We just use used cooking oil in barrels, and we can reduce voluminous nets. We've collected over 800 tons and store them out of the sun until they can be used for a different process. So we hope with Adrian in Guerrero Negro that we can make some headway on those pavers. Next slide, please. So we began looking for financing to improve our process and scale it up. We would like to be able to, there's a lot of net collection in our area, particularly to our north, because of some of the endangered species in the Gulf of California. But they have collected, but they don't know what to do with it. So we hope that we can replicate our reduction process in other fishing communities, and that those saturated collection centers will be able to use our process to give them more storage space. And then we want to integrate productive options, such as the one with Adrian Lucatero and Guerrero Negro, so we can potentiate the work that we're doing with work that others are doing. And now the last slide, I think. is thank you, of course. We've just had a fabulous relationship with Triple GI, and they've been so supportive of us. And even today, listening to what other Triple GI members are doing has given us, I'm sure, lots of ideas. And we're so grateful to be allowed to continue partnering with you all. And Hagamos Mas this is what we do. We know there's always more to do, but we want to continue with a great challenge like the one we've experienced. And I have to say that I'm sorry that my slides advance so fast, but I know that I'm in the time frame now. So I appreciate you all's patience watching those slides go back and forth in front of your eyes.
Thank you so much, Mickey. Thank you so much for your patience. I don't know how that happened, but we got through it. So, thank you so much, everyone. That is the end of our presentations for today. I do have one short video to share from, I do have a short video to share from Arab Arts. Their speaker was unable to be here today due to internet problems. So I'm gonna try to share my screen and play the video that way and see if that works out. So please let me know if you're having a hard time hearing or seeing anything. But this video should only just be a few minutes. Okay, so we're gonna share this. Oh, it would help if we started it from the beginning. Oh. I'm going to pause this really quick. Can anyone else hear the sound on this video? No. Okay. What I'm going to do in that case, oh my goodness, we cannot have a virtual experience without some technical difficulties. So what I'm going to do in this case, because it is a very beautiful video and there is some beautiful narration going along with it that I would hate for anyone to miss out on, I'm going to just pop the link into the Zoom chat. And I think that it's only 3 or 3.5 minutes of your time. So something that'd be fun to kind of tack on to the end of this call if you have some time or to watch it tomorrow. And then I think from there we can probably move into some questions and answers because we had some very passionate speakers today doing some really incredible work and some awesome photos. So I think let's move on to Q&A experience and I will put the link to the video in the chat. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to just jump right in and we can move right along.
Katie, I have a question for Beatriz in
Mm,
Brazil. Is there any chance that you could bring her presentation up again?
absolutely. All right, let me grab that presentation. Okay, bear with me here. For some reason, the presentation deck closed. Okay.
If I could remember exactly the wording she used, I could just ask the question, but I
Yeah,
almost
of course.
need to look at her presentation to ask the question.
Not a problem at all. Okay, let me share this screen again. Um, okay, and we can cruise right into Beatrice's presentation here. Okay, let me know what
It was
slide.
the next to last slide, I think.
Okay. Boop, 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 boop.
It was that
Uh,
circle, the
this one?
circle.
Okay,
No,
perfect.
there we go. Beatrice, I was curious, you didn't have a chance to discuss each of your items in your circle. I wondered what the meaning of ecosystem services was and how you interpret that.
Okay, wow, that's a complex question. So that's actually from a paper that's on the bottom, that's not related to our project in specific, but it's something that, at least in Brazil, the idea of like the blue economy and blue growth has been used like all over, even for oil and gas companies and stuff. So that's why I always make a point to include that in my presentation, because uh I do have a feeling that this term is being used without any meaning at all. And but when we're talking about ecosystem service more specifically with the coastal traditional communities that we work on, like there is a whole uh traditional knowledge that's not taken into place of how systems work. And we do have a lot of that in the community, like just researchers coming in, asking a bunch of questions, learning how that specific mangrove works, or that rocky shore or something. And they just leave with all that knowledge and don't value the locals and the local knowledge for that, and all the that's being done in that sense for tourism, for environmental protection and stuff like that.
Oh, if I understand you correctly, the not only does the part components of the ecosystem have a value that's not properly valued, but the persons who live in that ecosystem and know that ecosystem have a value that could be translated economically as well. Am I following what you're saying properly?
Yeah, I don't quite like the idea of like but that's pretty much the whole thing with ecosystem service. Like once you're talking economy and growth, uh people just want to put the price on top of everything, right? um I don't quite agree with that view, but it's something that we have been trying to make sure that is accounted in Brazil as well, like the knowledge that the people have. Mostly because we have so many examples of like in the Amazon, big pharmaceuticals coming in and using all the locals' knowledge of specific plants and stuff like that, and never paying for that kind of knowledge. And then all the profit goes to the big pharmaceutical companies. And how do we avoid that from happening? What we were talking about blue economy.
That's very interesting, and it gives a new thought about the value of persons who are integrated in the system rather than people coming from the outside just to make use of it. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm also gonna take a moment since I'm already with my mic open. Someone said that was impressed by the type of nets that we have over here. And we also do have monofilament nets, but specifically in the area that I work on, we have very few of them because nowadays what dominates is industrial fishing for sardines, and then they use those multi-filament nets. But in other parts of Brazil is so big, we do have more monofilament ones. So it was also very interesting for me seeing all your presentations and learning a bit about it, of how you're dealing with those other problems. Even though we can recycle using our machines monofilament nets, it's very hard for us to reuse them for artisanal products. We can only pretty much recycle them.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Beatrice, for elaborating on that. Does anybody else have any questions for our panelists?
I've got a question. Well, not so much a question, actually, a statement. Just with what I've just heard there about recycling gear. Earlier in the year, I went to a workshop in Iceland with representatives from most of the countries of the Arctic. And as part of that, we went to a fishing gear manufacturer who were very open about what they were capable of making and what they were capable of recycling themselves. Now, the impression they gave was that nylon 6 or nylon 66, which I believe is frequently used for monofilament net, is one of the easiest things to recycle. Easier by chemical recycling rather than mechanical cycling. Apparently, chemically recycled, you'll lose about 10% of the volume, but the material you'll have will be exactly the same as virgin nylon. So in effect, you could build a new net out of it, or you can build any nylon products out of it. And some of I've dabbled with some recycling with an upcycling company in Sri Lanka, and that's certainly where they're having success with nylon. But nothing as advanced as I've seen here. It's more about taking the nylon mesh and compacting it and then selling it, so kind of sending it off to one of the industrial level manufacturers that can recycle it. Has the kind of problems I'm sure you've all come across about, whether there's any contaminations in that, getting it cleaned and getting it accepted. The other interesting point that the manufacturer said is they can basically do any plastic combination the customer would require. And one of the other limitations with fishing gear is their multi-compound, which makes them difficult to recycle. So if only we can persuade customers to use kind of single compound fishing gear, we'd have an easier recycling in the future.
Joy, please chime in. Oh, Joy, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I do have a question for Beatrice. She mentioned that they're using machinery from precious plastic to turn the fishing nets into keychains. I was wondering if she could maybe share the name of the machinery so that we can just be aware of the options that we can use to handle the fishing gears, because where I am from Kenya, so Watamu, and we do have a lot of fishing gear, and we've been collecting fishing gears from the local fishing communities, and we just recently set up collection center at one of the fishing landing sites that is at Uyombo. So we just hadn't figured out as Eco Wild Recycling how we're going to now use the fishing gears, because at the moment we're recycling the other plastics or plastic containers and plastic bottles, and we just started collecting the fishing gears because it's becoming a big problem, especially with the turtles. And I just wanted to know the type of machinery to see if it's an option for us.
Sure. So I can send you like the link, but pretty much the machines that we use are machines from Precious Plastic, which is an open source machinery that can be assembled in several parts of the world. So it's an European institution that came up with those types of machines that's for recycling plastic like easily and in a small scale. And then you have people all over the world that can put together a machine like that. It's pretty nice, and I think it also goes with what Peter was saying. I feel like there are ways to recycle the nets, either nylon like we have or monofilament. What I find it really hard is how to make that commercially, like economically feasible. How can you make that interesting, at least for us, since we are in a very isolated community? It turns out to be so much more expensive, like doing all the net collection, cleanup, and all that. And then we have to transport everything by boat to the mainland to be able to recycle in a bigger scale, and that makes it impossible to, and we can't find any companies that are going to be interested in that. So that's why the keychains came into place, because even though the communities that I live in are not very touristic, there are other communities in the island that are more touristic. So and by making like small stuff like this, like souvenirs, it's something that people from outside, tourists, come look and they want to help. And then we do everything on the community, and they are willing to pay more for something like that. Because if you were to send the nets to the mainland to be recycled, it was going to be way too expensive and it wouldn't make sense. So that's pretty much how we've been trying to make things sustainable on the long term, but yeah, it's not. I also don't want to lie, say that like we are fully sustainable. No, that helps with more than 50%. So more than half of our budget comes from selling the products, but we still need projects and stuff like that. I always find that very important to point out.
Thank you so much. I'll really appreciate the link if you can just share that.
Sure, we do. I'll send them the chat.
Katie, may I add something on to what was just said?
Yeah, jump right in.
Actually, the problem, we face a very similar problem. The machinery or the downstream processing is very viable in certain areas, but for small communities, for example, up and down our peninsula, we can't. That's impossible, just as Beatriz just said. That's why we are thinking that anybody that has used cooking oil can turn a fishing net into a little piece of plastic, and the little pieces of plastic, well, they can be quite large, but they're far easier to manage. And that, even if nothing further happened to them, they would still take up less storage space and they also deteriorate less. So our thought was an intermediate step where with a process that's so basic that it could be used by any community of any size. And then what the challenge would be to get those materials, those half transformed materials, to a more central processing location that could afford the machinery, that could afford for example, as was already pointed out today, the 3D printers or things like that. So not only are there the problem of what to do with the nets, but where to do with the nets. And so that was what we thought might be a helpful thing, an intermediate step of management that led maybe to further downstream processing. And I'm quite sure that most of the people that are trying to deal with abandoned fishing nets face the same problem, or in a different way, an opportunity, and that's that the very rural communities can contribute in a positive way without maybe it being expensive. So that was, I just put in my 2 cents on that concept.
I have
Awesome.
a
Thank you so
question.
much. Oh, yes, Joy, please go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Lynette. Yes. The art that you guys are making and the techniques that you're using, is that something that you teach other people outside Australia, or is your work just centered around Australia?
Hi, Joy. No, we have had a lot of interest from overseas. I've run a large scale teach the teacher program in Singapore. We've had interest from Mauritius and Cape Verde Islands, and someone from Mexico quite a long time ago. Our problem, obviously, is we're a very small organisation, and we, funding for art is pretty minimal. So getting funding and getting help and doing that sort of thing is difficult for us. So yeah, it comes down to locations and funding, really. But yes, we do all sorts of reaching out to different communities. But yeah.
Thank you, Lynette. Is it possible to just get your contact information, maybe an email?
Yep, I can. I'm not sure how to do that on this. I can send you an email, or Katie, how do we go about sharing?
There is a chat function at the bottom of the screen. You could paste your email in there. Otherwise, Joy, I don't know if I have your email. I could connect you to over email as well.
And I can type that in now.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
That's my direct email.
Lynette.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lynette. Does anyone have any more questions for our presenters? All right. I am hearing crickets. I do have a question for our presenters, and this is for anybody to answer. A lot of you folks work with communities, which is very, very cool, very important. And I was wondering, like, what is the most like surprising thing that has come out of your community work in this area of arts and handicrafts and transforming ghost gear into other items or pieces of art? I was just wondering if like anyone from the community came up with a method or a technique or a way of thinking or doing things that you just didn't expect?
I can talk if no
Mhm.
one. So for me, it's how can I say this? For me, it's they realizing that their knowledge of mending nets is very specific, and I feel like it should be cultural heritage of somehow, and wanting to learn that, and seeing that it has value to it, because what the fishermen would say is that, oh, no one wants to learn that anymore, and we're gonna lose this type of knowledge, which has already happened with several other types of knowledges, traditional knowledges around here, like making single wood uh boats and stuff like that. um and then now we have kids and teenagers interested in learning that. And I feel like it was necessary for people from outside to come look at that, so that they could realize that, like, oh, okay, looks like this is something really special that no one else can do. I mean, I know not lots of small fishing communities can do, but they are just so used to it that they don't realize. And then last year, when we were doing this replicating process, we split it in 2 weeks. So we would have 1 week where essentially we would teach them what we already do with the nets. And then we would have 1 week off, and then the second week. And
Mhm.
by the end of the first week, we would do like brainstorming of other products that could be done with nets, and they would have the task to create one of those projects. So they would form small groups. We're a bit skeptical that they would be able to deliver those projects in the end, but every time they did. For all the communities, once we were back, they had developed so many other new products. And then we would say, like, do you see how you have that knowledge? We are here just facilitating it, but we don't know how to do any of that. You guys did. And it was, I guess, the moment that really made sense for them, I guess.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's what makes me the most excited about the work in general.
Oh, that's very cool. Thank you for sharing, Beatrice. Lynette, I see that you came off of mute. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, for me, working in community, I think it's been the opportunity for especially older people who have some of those traditional skills to be able to share them physically with their hands. But while they're doing that, it's the stories that accompany it that are very rich. So there's stories about, men working on luggers and trawlers, and then passing that on to children as well. So in community, that transfer via stories and traditional means has been incredible. But when pieces go to exhibition, you see children come along with their parents and grandparents, and the children just go, oh wow, and the parents can talk about sustainability, but grandma comes along and talks about the actual stitching and how things are made. And so again, it's because ghost net's very tactile, you want to touch it. I think that has been that transfer of knowledge, and that it carries stories with it has been really important for us.
Mhm. Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you. All right. Um, That's awesome. I was wondering if either of our other speakers had anything to add to that question. If not, I'm happy to. We've got 3 minutes left, so if anyone else has any other questions, please jump in.
Alma and I visited a little bit, and we just wanted to, we do a lot of things with school children and in the community. But before we saw Lynette's presentation, we didn't realize how powerful it could be to have a community art, kind of like the little rays that everybody made, and then it was made into a greater work of art. And so that was a kind of a light bulb moment during this seminar, that we could actually get a feedback going in the using art as a vehicle. So I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been those projects where the module comes together to make a powerful statement. We've done it with rays, with turtles, all kinds of small animals that you can make, and we have instruction sheets, and we push that out in little kits and all sorts of ways of doing it. But yeah, they make, and sardines we've done. It makes incredibly powerful statements. So yeah, thanks. It's I really enjoy it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone so much for your time today. Big thank you to all of our speakers for joining us from all over the place in the world, whether it's early morning or late at night. And thank you again to all of our audience members who tuned in to learn more about transforming ghost gear into other things. And again, joining from wherever in the world you are. I am going to close us out, but if you have any questions or you would like to get in touch with any speakers that you didn't grab their contact information, please let me know and I would be happy to put you in touch. So thank you so much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day or evening.